Action. Hey, and welcome to this special Scape Sesh. I will not be on film today. It will be Hip versus Parker, who's our new summer intern. And I'm super excited for this episode myself. And I finally get to watch this episode film instead of being filmed. And before we start off, Hip, I have a question for you.
I'm ready. What's your question, man?
What do you get when you cross an elephant and a fish?
Oh man, I have no idea, man. What?
Swimming trunks!
Oh, God.
Okay, anyways, before we get started, we're gonna have another UNS giveaway. We will be choosing 3 winners. All you need to do is leave a comment below in this video, and we'll be sending out 3 swag bags to you guys. Good luck.
All right, so like John said, welcome to this Scape Sesh. We have Parker here, our new summer intern. So I'm no longer the newest guy here. And today we're gonna be scaping these new 45 Ts. This is a newer version of our 45U, which is a little bit taller, and you get about 20% more extra volume out of these. So we're gonna try them out today and scape them for you guys. I've been doing this for a long time. Parker's still sort of new, so we're gonna get his perspective on things. Parker, we just met for the very first time yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And we definitely got to talk a little bit. I got to get to know you. There's definitely more we can talk about. So why don't you go ahead and start off with introducing yourself to us, how you got started, what your title is here, and what you'll be doing. Let's start off with that.
Yeah, so my name is Parker. I'm currently working as a summer intern for doing product design for Ultum. I've been in the hobby for a couple years now, about 3 or 4. I think what appeals to me the most about the hobby is I've always found nature super fascinating, and it kind of combines nature with my love for art, so it provides kind of the perfect opportunity for me.
That's cool. Well, this is a Scape Sesh, so as we keep talking, why don't we get started on the tanks, right?
Yeah.
So I just need a little bit of sand. I'm gonna throw in a thin layer here, and then I can hand it off to you because I think you wanted to do sand as well, right?
Yeah.
Boom, that's all I need. Here you go, man.
Thank you.
In the hobby, when you first started, what got you to get your first aquarium?
Well, when I was in the dorms in college, me and my roommate actually got a betta fish in an aquarium that was admittedly too small, but we quickly upgraded from there, and kind of from that point we got some live plants and stuff, and it spiraled out of control.
You started aquascaping pretty much when you started keeping aquariums, or do you think you kept aquariums first and then kind of got into aquascaping a little bit later?
I think that it started out with me trying to keep plants alive in the little tank, but I had no luck with that. So I began researching kind of what the plants needed, and from there kind of evolved into becoming a fascination for aquascaping.
Do you remember what your first plant was?
I do. My first plant was dwarf hairgrass.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we had no luck keeping it alive, like I said. Melted super fast, but I think we just kept trying from there. Kind of went to Java fern next,
Nice.
which is another beginner plant. We had more success with that, and then, from there, kind of just tried my luck with all different sorts of plants, yeah.
Do you have a favorite plant right now?
I think my favorite plant right now is UG, yeah, Uticularia gramifolia.
Solid.
I don't know if I said that right, but
you got it. Yeah.
I think it's known to be more of a finicky plant, definitely a more difficult plant. But I think that's kind of why I enjoy using it the most, because it's super rewarding when it does do well. It kind of spirals out of
it gives you like a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And you get that sense of achievement when you do it right.
Oh, definitely.
What do you think you changed when you first got your hairgrass and it failed, and then what do you think you changed about your husbandry or your plant keeping that put you on the first road to success?
The main thing was developing an understanding for what these aquatic plants needed. Lighting was a big problem in my first tank. I think I had some sort of generic LED strip light that didn't really do much in terms of, supplementing the actual plant growth and stuff like that. And then eventually CO2 and stuff like that, but that was kind of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, speaking of rabbit holes, how many tanks do you have now? Do you keep a lot of them, or are you staying busy?
Yeah, me and my roommates actually have 8 tanks in our apartment. Yeah, with one of them not filled, one of them's dry starting. Like I said, it kind of spiraled out of control once we started getting into it.
Do you have a favorite tank? What does it look like that you're keeping like right now?
Favorite tank that I have right now is actually one of the UNS 45S, the shallow.
Oh, yeah, that's a super popular one. We've been seeing so many cool shallow tanks. I love watching like how people get creative with them.
Yeah, I think it just has such a unique footprint. It it's becoming more and more popular now, definitely. But I think that the shallow tanks, I like to experiment them a lot with immersed plants and kind of how plants that we traditionally assume are aquatic in the hobby, how they kind of grow immersed. I think that provides like a really unique opportunity for experimentation and, again, kind of personalizing the tank and making it your own. So.
Yeah, I think it's like really fascinating to see how a plant can have 2 different forms or like 2 different identities, and then to put that in a setting where we can see both forms of the plant, it's really cool to watch.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you really enjoy art and how the 2 kind of play off of each other. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, what is it about the relationship between the 2 that makes it interesting?
I started off in high school and stuff doing a lot of fine arts, and then transitioning over to product design kind of just evolved my love for art and stuff like that. So I think aquascaping in general is such a unique combination. You really have the opportunity to customize whatever you're doing and make it your own, personalize it.
Yeah.
And it's also living, so that adds a whole nother level of how rewarding it is.
There's just something about like seeing your work having an actual result,
Yeah.
And when you're doing well, it tells you that it's doing well, and when you need to improve it, it shows you like, hey, I need a little bit more attention here and there. So I think it's so rewarding to do something right and then actually being able to see your results. It feels so like gratifying. Right?
Yeah, I think definitely one of my most gratifying moments in the hobby was having success with the plants for the first time. I think that really sealed the deal, because I understand, from firsthand experience, kind of starting off in the hobby, how frustrating it can be.
Yeah.
When stuff kind of isn't going your way, plants are dying for unknown reasons and stuff like that. So I think once you develop an understanding for that and develop an understanding for the needs of this ecosystem that you're setting up and caring for, that's when it really becomes, this super satisfying.
What kind of resources do you use to learn like the things that you learn?
It's mainly YouTube, to be honest. Yeah, kind of looking at some of these famous aquascapers, how they set up their tanks and how they provided for these ecosystems and set up these aquariums. I think that was incredibly valuable in learning some of this stuff.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like what we're trying to do here, right? Our whole goal is to help you guys learn and be successful too. Now you get to be a part of that, I get to be a part of that, and that just makes us really happy to contribute to people's growth. Walked into this office and in our warehouse and all of that for the first time yesterday. I got to do that for the first time very recently too. Describe what that was like for you.
It was definitely unique. I've never worked or been in an environment quite like that. I think that this is my hobby, it's one of my passions.
Yeah.
So I think walking into the office first time and seeing just all the plants and all the aquariums set up and just the workspace and the overall environment was super cool.
It was just like,
yeah, it was mind-blowing, definitely.
It was really cool to, when I remember the first time that I came here and there was just all these pallets to pick from, all these plants. They're just hearing the trickling water as you're walking through and seeing the plants, and it's like, oh man, I want to try using that. I want to try using that. Oh, I've never seen this wood before.
Yeah.
It was just like really overwhelming and like felt really cool. I see that we have kind of like the same vibe going on here with like the wood in the top left corner and kind of coming down. Why don't you walk us through like your thought process on this scape so far and how you ended up choosing these out there in the warehouse?
I think my thought process for this scape was that I wanted to capture this moment where a tree stump meets a riverbed. So I chose to opt for this beautiful piece of wood kind of swooping downwards here at like a 45-degree angle and just meeting the soft substrate in the sand. The darker tones of the lava rock and the textures will really complement some of the plants that we're gonna go with.
Yeah.
I think that's also a huge thing that I learned was kind of, how can you use texture in creating a gratifying aquascape, and how can we utilize some of the colors as well? Because each of these plants has, completely unique colors and stuff like that. So I think when we combine that with some of the uniqueness in the rock choice and the wood, we can really create a dynamic scape.
Well, that's a really great perspective. And then like coming from an artist background, I like how that you put some emphasis on contrast and colors and shapes, right? When we're aquascaping, we're almost painting a picture, but instead of paint, we have these live natural materials, you know? And so it's really cool to hear an artist's perspective on how you would utilize those things.
And again, I think that that's one of the reasons why I found this hobby so gratifying, is because it really is such a unique form of self-expression that you don't really see anywhere else.
You are kind of new, but not that new. You said you did this, you've been playing with aquariums for about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
What's something that you've learned, very recently that was like really fascinating?
I think one of the most fascinating things that I have learned recently and have been experimenting with was how some of these plants that we typically assume, so we see them in display tanks at fish stores and stuff, and they're always underwater, but kind of how they adapt to immersed growth, above water growth. And I think it provides a lot of like really unique opportunities in aquascapes, like even in our scapes here, kind of how we have this wood coming out of the water.
Yeah.
In scapes like this, it provides a really unique opportunity to experiment with how some of these plants that we typically assume are submerged, how they transition to immersed growth, like at this portion up here. Just experimenting with that and playing with that is really just, again, helping my understanding of plants in general. I think the hobby as a whole is kind of seeing that recently with a lot of plant tanks and a lot of like terrariums utilizing these aquatic plants. Yeah, like I said, I think it really just adds a whole nother layer to how you can capture this scene of this aquascape, this slice of nature that you're creating. So.
Yeah, and I've seen you've kind of created a platform for this to happen, or like an area for that to happen. Do you have a plant in mind that you'd like to see transition out of the water?
One of my favorite plants recently that I've been using for that is Hydrocaudal verticula.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Underwater, it has these leaves that are about 1/2 inch, but once it does transition to immersed growth, you can get these giant, probably 1.5 inch large leaves. So I think that really provides a unique opportunity, and it can climb up wood. What would you say your favorite plant for, scaping like this in general is?
I tend to choose ones that I think are going to be easy to transition out. One of those would be Hygrophila pinnatifida. Not only because they transition in and out of water really easily, but the above water growth, they send out these really pretty purple flowers.
Yeah.
The plant itself actually has a really nice scent to it. It's also a classic choice, and I really like the shape of the leaves. It's interesting. It's not just like a pointed teardrop shape.
Yeah, it's definitely a shape that you don't see too often. Kind of accenting scapes with some of those unique shaped leaves and stuff like that can really add another level to how dynamic it is.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I'm done with this. Like, I've been holding these 2 rocks, just like I don't know what I've been doing with them. All right, I think I'm done with these rocks. What do you want to learn more about right now in terms of, aquascaping, plant keeping, aquarium keeping?
It really comes down to how do I develop a better understanding of competitive aquascaping techniques. How can you utilize like shadow, especially in a scape, to kind of add that level of depth and perspective to it that you won't necessarily get if you're not considering it. I hope to fine-tune some of those like higher level aquascaping techniques, as well as like perspective, adding levels, kind of moving backwards and stuff like that.
When it comes to light and dark, we spoke a little bit earlier in this video about contrast, right? So you do want to play with light, dark, shadows, and things like that. And one really cool tip that I have for you and for you guys is that when you think about a light source and you have your hardscape in an area like this, so you can really play with light and dark in this way just by tilting the angle of your hardscape. But also now when I lean it back, you can see how much lighter and brighter the hardscape gets too. The angle that you're putting things into your tank can really dramatically affect those light and dark. As far as perspective, I always think about art class when I was in middle school and high school, and they used to have us draw those railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And those railroad tracks would be, you know, thin at the top and wide at the bottom. That's always a really good way to create perspective and depth.
Yeah, so one of the things that was mentioned to me was kind of choosing your hardscape almost in tiers of, you know, you start off with
not crying tears, T-I-E-R-S.
Yeah, yeah. So you start off with larger pieces and you kind of transition downwards to smaller pieces. And leveling this from front to back with small in the front, transitioning to these larger pieces in the back are really going to add that perspective and depth to your scape.
Yeah.
I think that definitely you giving me that tip kind of helped me choose some of the rock selection that I'm doing. So yeah, incredibly helpful tip that'll definitely improve your scapes at home.
Well, I really like these two so far. I'm really digging the look here with all the roots coming down, and you were mentioning the concept of, you know, draping down. Looks really great, man.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
What else do you have planned for, like, planting wise?
Planting wise, I think I wanted to do plants up here that would attach pretty well to the wood. So I was thinking probably some Bucephalandra, as well as like maybe some Anubias, stuff like that. Pretty simple plants, but I think because it's one of my favorite plants, I wanted to do some sort of UG kind of sprinkled around the bottom and then have it kind of almost climbing up this wood to give that impression of, you know, as I mentioned previously, like where the river kind of meets a tree and how naturally plants and stuff will transition.
I see you sprinkling in these little detailed lava rocks.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and what you learned today about those.
So I think you know, one of the things that you mentioned to me when we were out choosing hardscape was
And I have some too.
just how important some of these details are. And when you're putting together this final scape, a lot of times they don't need to match the exact texture of these rocks, but simply having similar color and stuff is going to be enough to add, you know, the special hints of detail. Here I'm lucky because I got crushed up lava rock, so it does match the texture that I'm choosing. But adding these small detail rocks, they're great to fill up space. It'll save you money on, you know, soil and stuff like that if you put them between rocks, behind hardscape. It also acts as a great biofilter. So,
oh, that's a really good point.
yeah. And then adding them, as you see, up near the front of the scape, just adds a great level of detail that you can't really get otherwise. If you're lucky enough to find a hardscape like this or something that speaks to you in such a way, it kind of makes the scape itself. There's no need to overcomplicate it. And I think what both of us are doing is kind of just designing around this showcase piece of wood. Like I chose this giant piece. I thought the swoop and some of the details were really interesting. And you know, you clearly have this piece. And I think that a lot of times there's no need to like overcomplicate hardscape when you have such a beautiful centerpiece piece.
Yeah,
If that makes
you know,
sense.
sometimes overthinking things or making it complicated ends up making it too busy, right?
So I think one of the other things I'm trying to do in this scape is kind of play with the idea of negative space as well as shadows that we talked about earlier. And that's kind of seen here, how, you know, these branches don't necessarily meet, but I think once planted out,
You can kind of like hide the seams.
yeah,
or
you
like
can hide the seams almost, as well as that negative space is going to just add another layer of interest. So at this point, it's kind of what I'm looking for, and this is how can I use some of these smaller details like that to really make the scape dynamic once it's planted out.
All right, so I've definitely asked him a ton of questions today. I want to give him a chance to ask me for any questions or advice you'd like on this or in aquascaping in general.
So my question to you would be, how can we as like beginner, intermediate level aquascapers utilize negative space to, you know, create a stronger scape at home?
So I think negative space in terms of wanting to use it, think about where things are really busy, maybe even too busy, and kind of putting a little bit of emptiness in there to balance it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be, you know, a really great way of doing that. And
Sure.
I like the way that you did that here, because we have this empty window here and a little small one here. It's all in the middle of all this busyness and complexity, and I think it gives you like a nice little break to balance that out. So I think you've used it well, yeah, man, everything looks really great. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation and those questions. We definitely had a lot of fun. It's been a really fun conversation, a great episode. So thank you for coming on. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. We're doing that giveaway for 3 lucky winners. So leave your comments, tell us what you learned about, or if you want to know more about something, ask us, you know. And yeah, it's been a really great episode. It was nice meeting you, man.
For sure, nice
great
to meet you too.
episode.
Yeah,
and yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.